Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news. And welcome back to another edition of Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to what's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. Joining us this week, Jason McGuire with New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms and Michael Geer with the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Michael, I know you had a little bout with the COVID, but you are back in the saddle, ready to go, and we have a lot to get through in just 10 minutes, so let's get going. Jason, I'm going to start with you. It's been a while since there's been an impeachment trial in New York. I think you got to go all the way back to 1913. That was the last and only one. But given the slew of allegations and accusations now facing this governor, of course, innocent until proven guilty, want to make that fact. But it looks like there may be an impeachment trial. In fact, the governor says it's the only way he's going to go is if there's an impeachment trial. If that happens, Jason, what would it look like?
Well, Bob, you're not just a newsman. You are a Jeopardy master. You're right. You got to go back to 1913 to see then it was Governor William Sulzer was the only gubernatorial impeachment we've had here in New York. What would it look like if it happened today? Well, it's still a long shot, but it would take essentially Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie scheduling a vote and 76 members of the Assembly agreeing to move that action. We're not there yet. And if it moved even in that House, then it comes to the Senate, where I believe the Senate will be much more willing to engage on that action. So we're not there, but I will tell you, as the woes continue to grow for Governor Cuomo, this is something that more and more people are beginning to call for.
Yeah, and if he is impeached, if there is the vote to take a simple majority, he would have to step down. Unlike with the presidential impeachment, he would have to relinquish power while that trial happens in the Senate.
Yeah, it's ironic to think that, here we've seen two scorpions in a bottle between then President Trump and Governor Cuomo, and it could be that President Trump has walked away from impeachment not once but twice, and then we could still see a governor who is impeached.
Yeah, interesting. You can't make this stuff up. It is fascinating to think about. Michael, the president is signing today that $1.9 trillion COVID relief law, and it passed on a purely partisan basis, no Republican support. Billions in that behemoth of a spending bill will go to the abortion industry. What in the wide world of sports does that have to do with the pandemic?
In a word, nothing. It's been just part of this whole COVID relief plan. Only 9% of the money that's allocated in this $1.9 trillion bill is going for COVID relief at all. The rest of it is Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, said this is the most progressive bill in history. And I think it will maintain that tag until such time as if the Equality Act passes the Senate, which we certainly hope it does not.
Yeah. I want to talk about a state issue that's got a lot of attention these days, Jason. State Senator Samra Brook of Rochester wants comprehensive sex ed for 5-year-olds, but this is not your grandfather's sex education. Why is this indoctrination so dangerous?
Well, if you're okay with your children and grandchildren being taught about gender fluidity and that there are more than two genders and that they can receive hormones to, impact their puberty and change their gender, then you have nothing to be concerned about. But if you are, the average person across this state who understands that there are two genders, male and female, and understands the most appropriate place to have those conversations are between the parents and their children, well, then you should have a problem with Summer Brook's sex education. And yet that's an issue that we're battling at the state capitol.
How much of a chance does this have at passing?
Considering, ironically, with all of the other battles that are going on in the Capitol, all of the matters of scandal and other things, it's unlikely that a controversial subject like this will move, but it is why we have to activate now, lest we be caught asleep at the switch.
Speaking of controversial issues, Michael, when it comes to the COVID vaccine, there is concern that some of these vaccines, and of course there are many now on the market, are made from abortion-derived stem cells. If there are any, could you explain which ones are, and should Christians avoid these vaccines?
We have a very helpful chart at the Pennsylvania Family Institute website, pafamily.org, that was put together by the Charlotte Lozier Institute, which is part of the SBA list. And it lists all of the different vaccines that are available or soon to be available, or at least being considered and going through testing. And two of them have come up as being derived from cells from aborted children, and those would be the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which has already received the emergency approval from the FDA, and then the AstraZeneca one, which is still going through that final process. So those would be the two that are derived from that. And the concern, people would have a conscience concern about taking a medication or a drug or vaccine that is derived from the intentional death of an unborn child, which is the case with the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca.
Can folks opt out for those vaccines and wait for another one? I mean, the availability thing is a huge question mark right now, given the supply problems. What counsel would you give there?
Well, I would recommend, if they have concerns about those particular vaccines, that they check with the facility that they're going to obtain the vaccine, to find out what the brand is that is being distributed in that place.
Gotcha.
Again, it's a very significant conscience question.
Yeah, and again, we'll give your website at the end, and folks, I'm sure, are going to want to know more about that. Well, Jason, few news outlets other than Fox and yours truly right here did anything at all on that other scandal plaguing the governor, and those nursing homes weren't the only places COVID patients were sent. Please explain this controversy, since it seems not much in media is paying any attention at all here.
Well, we've got a number of scandals that have been going on under the Cuomo administration. You mentioned the nursing home situation. There is also a similar thing that is occurring at homes for developmentally disabled that are under the same order. We have now 6 women that have come forward to accuse the governor of sexual harassment, some of the details of which I cannot discuss in this radio program, as they are a very family-friendly network. Yeah. And then you also have even projects regarding bridges that are downstate that are showing there's been some potential cover-up of bolts that are being sheared off of bridges. Just at every level, it seems the walls are beginning to close in on Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, one of those bridges is named the Mario Cuomo Bridge. So, maybe somebody will do their job and investigate some of these stories. It just seems to get zero coverage on the news. Michael, we all were kind of taken back when that Equality Act passed the U.S. House. We've been warning for months on this program the dangers in that legislation. Do we yet know when the U.S. Senate will vote on that? How do you think Senator Toomey may vote on that? And God forbid, is there any chance that will pass?
Well, first of all, the Biden administration said this was a 100-day priority. And the fact that it passed the House but has not yet had action in the Senate suggests that they don't have the votes there. And if that is indeed the case, that's a credit to people in this audience and people all across the country who are raising concerns with their United States Senator about the Equality Act. We're hopeful that Senator Toomey will do the right thing and vote against this atrocious piece of legislation. That's the signal that we're hoping to get or are getting so far from that office, but we encourage people to continue to communicate with Senator Toomey to oppose the Equality Act.
All right, and this is the time of year when Christians throughout New York typically would gather in Albany and let their voices be heard for your Legislative Day event. Jason, it's your biggest fundraiser of the year, but there is something going to be happening next Tuesday, March 16th. Won't be the same as it usually is, but tell our listeners how they can take part in that event on Tuesday, March 16th.
Yeah, with the Capitol closed, we are hosting Legislative Day 2021, a digital day of action. And so starting at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning, there will be a live video event where we'll be offering legislative updates on some of the issues that we've even talked about in this program, including that sex ed bill that was mentioned just a few moments ago, and a host of other issues. It's a 90-minute online event, and then throughout the day, we'll be driving people to take digital actions, action alerts, emails, social media posts, tweets, things to actually put these issues at the forefront of legislative minds and to exert our influence on the Capitol even when we can't be there. You can go ahead and register at our website at albanyupdate.com.
All right, and you beat me to it. albanyupdate.com is the site to go to. Stay involved, please, if you care about these issues in New York. Hey, if you've got questions about those vaccines, and maybe some of them you should avoid, Michael, where can folks check you out?
PAFamily.org.